Throughout the 20th century, East Asia has been a battleground, teeming with both military conflicts and ideological clashes. As the Second World War drew to a close and the Korean War dawned, the newly developed countries of Eastern Asia rose to power, drawing social and societal characteristics from both the West and its well-established past.
During World War II, clashes between Japan and China resulted in unstable conditions that eventually undermined the strength and power of Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist army. Faced with both threats from Japan and the rising forces of Mao Zedong's Communist Party, Chiang Kai-shek was unable to stabilize Chinese society.
While the nationalists often abused Chinese peasants and imposed high taxes, Mao's communist forces gained the favor of China's working class, giving them newfound power and purpose. As the Second World War drew to a close, Chinese society faced radical changes from the ground up. Not only did Mao promote national unity and recover China from the devastation of war, but also empowered the workers, a direct result of the newly established People's Republic of China. In other words, the former class systems that defined Chinese society for hundreds of years disappeared, replaced by equality for all.
In addition, women of the new People's Republic of China were given many new rights. Not only were they allowed to divorce, but they also gained the ability to obtain wealth. Old traditions, such as foot binding and arranged marriages, were outlawed and discouraged by the new government.
December 7, 1941. In a surprise invasion, Japanese fighter planes swept through the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of U.S. soldiers and the destruction of many U.S. warships. This event sparked the intense fighting that would soon devastate the islands of the Pacific, including Japan. After losing key islands such as Midway and Iwo Jima, the Pacific theater drew to a grinding halt. However, in 1945, the world's first two atomic warheads were unleashed upon Japan, resulting in widespread devastation. The industrial centers of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were razed to the ground, resulting in the deaths of thousands of Japanese civilians.
In contrast to China, however, Japan was largely intact. Not only were its people still united, but its government remained stable. Such a difference could be attributed to geographical factors between the two countries. While Japan is a small, isolated island, China consists of many different people and places. Thus, Japan is much easier to ideologically and politically unite. Ultimately, Japan did not succumb to much social change, in sharp contrast to China.
During 1910 to 1945, Japan ruled Korea through oppression, forbidding the Koreans to use the Korean language in schools and other elements of Korean culture from society. This stimulated the independence movement from 1919, where thousands of Koreans were killed and churches, temples, and schools were destroyed. During World War II, Japan depended on Korea for resources and laborers, and thus Korea participated in the war. Finally, the Japanese surrendered on August 1945, and a barrier was created between the communists and those who believed in the Republic. The Soviet troops influenced the communists to establish the People's Republic of Korea, which turned into North Korea. The American troops, however, influenced the other half of Korea to create a democratic government, the Republic of Korea, or South Korea. This long-growing resentment between North Korea and South Korea came to a climax when North Korean troops invaded the South, instigating the Korean War. The United States was a primary ally to South Korea, and China supported the North Koreans.
Overall, the Korean War was one of the most devastating conflicts fought in the Korean Peninsula, resulting in widespread social changes across the globe. However, most of these effects negatively impacted both North and South Korean society. Not only did over 4 million Koreans perish due to the Civil War, but it ironically killed many more civilians than soldiers. Furthermore, The Korean War ravaged urban environments, leaving few modern buildings standing.
In spite of social damages in Korea, other East Asian nations, especially Japan, benefited. During the Korean War, Japan significantly bolstered its weak economy by supplying both the US and South Korean forces. Ultimately, the Korean War allowed Japan to recover from the wreckage of the Second World War.
In the end, Japan's strong sense of nationalism allowed it to gain the upper hand over much of East Asia in spite of its size. This contrasted sharply to China, which was stricken by civil war and revolution. These vast differences led to important changes in government. While a unified, stable Japan embraced capitalism, a fragmented and insecure China sought to solve its problems through communism. However, these differences feel distant in a modern world of rapid change and progression. As the East Asian countries now look back on the rich backgrounds of strife and revolution, peace and prosperity, they shine today at the dawn of a new era and a new future.
Done! Oh yeah!